400 kilometers of obsidian water. No shore. No lattice beneath the paws. Only the rhythmic displacement, the hydraulic pump of limbs against liquid density. Each stroke costs calories that no longer exist. The body, a skeletal machine engineered for ice, now suspended in the element that dissolved its kingdom. To understand how they arrived here, the kingdom resembles fractured porcelain. White geometric fragments float against the black abyss, their edges honeycombed, saturated with molecular instability. Light rakes horizontal across this dissolution, bleached bone meeting mercury, casting no shadows, only exposure. Here, atop the structural collapse of what was once a continental roof, the Ghost King possesses a superpower. 1 billion olfactory receptors capable of detecting a single seal breathing through 1 meter of solid lattice 32 kilometers distant. But the lattice is failing. The scent arrives through water now. The peak solstice triggers a biological metronome older than continents. When the sun refuses to set, when light becomes a constant pressure against the retina, their bodies remember. It is the signal. The season of abundance approaches. Or approached. The Ghost Kings have synchronized their physiology to this astronomical certainty for 200,000 years. Heart rates slow. Metabolic furnaces bank their fires. The body prepares for the hunt season. That blessed window when the platform solidifies and the seals cannot hide. This year, the platform never arrived. They emerge from different vectors of the vanishing kingdom. Solitary by nature, they are nonetheless responding to the same alarm, the Great Thinning. Where the plateau once stretched for hundreds of kilometers, now only archipelagos of white remain, drifting, disconnecting, each figure autonomous, alone, yet part of a collective migration toward memory, toward the coordinates where the ice traditionally persisted longest. They do not travel together. They travel as one species moving through the same emergency. The journey begins. Leaving stable ground is an act of faith in cartography written in the body. The paws, those magnificent thermal regulators, now press against honeycombed crystal. Each step produces information, the sound of compression, the feedback of density, the micro-negotiations between 500 kilograms and a surface losing its molecular integrity. The transition is gradual, then absolute. Behind, the safety of yesterday's ice. Ahead, the slush-saturated threshold. There is no protocol for retreat. The lattice destabilizes hourly. Forward becomes the only viable direction. The body begins its negotiation with absence. No seal, no fat, no caloric input. In response, a metabolic miracle. The urea to creatinine ratio drops below 10. They are recycling their own nitrogen, dismantling muscle to rebuild muscle, cannibalizing the machine to keep the machine operational. This is walking hibernation, a biological paradox. The heart slows. Non-essential systems power down, but the legs must continue. Each day, 0.85 kilograms vanish. Not lost, burned, converted into forward motion. The ribs begin their emergence through the hide. Stage 1, the slowing. The body has entered a managed emergency. The edge of the world is not a cliff. It is a texture shift, the place where white geometric certainty surrenders to black hydro uncertainty. This convergence zone has historical memory, but the boundary has migrated. The solid has retreated. What remains is the arena of last resort, the interface where their kingdom becomes hyper-ocean. They arrive gaunt, purposeful, metabolically reprogrammed. The void awaits. And within the void, perhaps the scent of land. Memory surfaces, the courtship dance on stable ice, the sparring that determines genetic selection. But here, now, the only dance is with depletion. The heart, that four-chambered engine, continues its decrescendo. 60 beats per minute becomes 50, then 40. The slowing is strategic. Reduce demand, extend the timeline, outlast the crisis. Yet the environment accelerates its demands. The lattice beneath them performs its own rhythm, structural collapse measured in centimeters per hour. One entity slowing, the other accelerating. The mismatch is precise, mathematical, and potentially fatal. They rest on surfaces that will not support them tomorrow. To maintain core temperature, to keep the machinery of decision-making operational, the body makes withdrawals. Subcutaneous fat depleted. Now the body turns to its own architecture. Gluteal muscle mass decreases. The haunches hollow. The magnificent coat begins to yellow as natural oils are metabolized for internal moisture. They are converting themselves into fuel. One miscalculation in the slush, one paw breaking through into the thermal sink, triggers molecular arrest. The calculus is unforgiving. Every movement must justify its energetic cost. Stillness is its own discipline. They adopt the posture, sphinx-like, weight distributed, minimizing contact with the crystalline surface. Grease ice forms in the melt pools. That preliminary phase of re-solidification, neither solid nor liquid, a texture like heavy cream. It offers no support but whispers of seasonal transition. The nose remains active, scanning, parsing, separating brine from the faint, nearly hallucinatory trace of life beyond the horizon. The weight extends. Days accumulate. Hunger is no longer a sensation. It is a baseline state, the new equilibrium against which all other signals must compete. The Great Dissolve arrives not as catastrophe, but as inevitability. The remaining lattice fragments succumb to molecular disintegration. The choice is binary: swim or sink. They enter the hyper-ocean, 400 kilometers to the nearest persistent ice. The body must confront hydrodynamic reality. Slack skin creates drag, and the arithmetic is merciless. A 400-kilometer swim consumes 125,000 kilocalories, 22% of remaining body mass. Stroke frequency must increase by 13% to compensate for the drag coefficient of loose hide. Only the light-absorbing void remains. Stage 2 biology manifests. The yellowed coat clings to the skeletal architecture. Muscle fiber atrophy in the hindquarters is visible. The rear legs now vestigial paddles. The propulsive burden transferred entirely to the forelimbs. The ocular orbits have deepened into caverns. They are swimming through the darkest physiological hour, the moment when cellular respiration approaches the minimum threshold required for consciousness. The obsidian water provides no mercy, no exception. Here, they are merely organic matter suspended in a medium that recognizes only density and displacement. And yet, the dignity of effort persists. When exhaustion demands cessation, they adopt the static drift, a napping technique where the body becomes motionless, trusting buoyancy, conserving the final reserves while remaining semi-conscious. Minutes of rest. Then the limbs resume their hydraulic rhythm. Why? The kingdom has vanished. Logic suggests cease. But they do not possess logic. They possess something older, the biological imperative that predates reasoning, the will to paddle when the shore is invisible, the refusal to accept the void as conclusion. This is continuation, the body as verb, the act of forward motion as its own justification. Day 96. Texture shift. The paws contact something neither liquid nor lattice. Gravel, stone, tundra. They emerge from the hyper-ocean skeletal, saturated, transformed. Water streams from the yellowed coat. The hindquarters tremble with atrophy, but the skull lifts. The nose activates. Stage 3. Landfall. They have become amphibious refugees, their magnificence reduced to its essential framework. Beautiful in their vulnerability, proof that survival sometimes means arriving as a ghost of your former architecture. 100 days without seal fat. The hunt begins with desperation made mechanical. A carcass washes ashore, not fresh, but present. The jaws engage. The ritual is automatic, teeth scraping blubber, tongue processing nutrients, the digestive system awakening from its hibernation mode. It is not abundance. It is not the caloric surplus of a successful ice hunt, but it is input. The furnace receives fuel. The metabolic calculations adjust. The body begins its incremental reconstruction. The temperature descends. Autumn arrives as mathematics. Air molecules slow. Water transitions through its phases. The grease ice thickens to Nilas, then toward the first-year lattice. Nature's balance, not restored, but approximated. The Ghost Kings have purchased another season through the currency of starvation and endurance. The next generation of ice forms slowly, provisionally, offering the possibility of next year's hunt, if the thermal equations stabilize, if the lattice persists. The hunger releases its grip gradually. Cellular repair begins its patient work. The elders, those who survived the thermal dump, who outlasted the 400-kilometer void, carry new data in their bodies. The metabolic boundary of survivability has been recorded, embedded. When the ice rebuilds, they return to their solitary protocols. Distributed across the reforming kingdom, each figure autonomous yet bound by collective experience. They carry the memory of the pelagic trial, the knowledge that their platform is provisional, that the lattice's molecular integrity is no longer guaranteed. The light returns to its horizontal raking angle, bleached bone meeting mercury. In their paws, the Rete Mirabile vessel networks maintain pad surface temperature at precisely 1 degree above the threshold of molecular arrest, preventing thermal dump into the thermal zero-point sink. 200,000 years of Arctic engineering, still operational. Still walking the fractured porcelain. The eternal story continues, rewritten slightly, adapted marginally. The Ghost Kings endure.